We are live.
Yay! That means you made it through the weekend, and we're glad you did. I am Old New Dude. He is,
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
and per usual, every time I log in to set up for a live stream, I have gained one more follower at 197.
Nice.
So we're 3 away from that 200. I don't know what the hell we're going to do when we hit 200, but we'll think of something.
All right.
Maybe we'll put out the Who's video. All right, this is.
All right.
Oh, maybe we'll put out the. There we go. That has set it up.
That's not the Chrome StreamYard bug. That's something else.
Yeah.
Something easily addressed.
There you go. Stormer Sword, Sammy 1. I almost said Sammy 2 for some reason.
Hey, Sammy. It's Sammy. It's like you. It's like you. Come here. Come on. Yeah, it's like you. It's like you. Yeah, Sammy, like you. All right. As cute as Sammy is, he probably can't join me the whole live stream. All right.
No, you know what? Call him up there. So yeah, let's take it. Take it away, big man.
So craven you killed an other. Sobbing, Sam took another step. This is the last one, the very last. I can't go on, I can't. But his feet moved again. One and then the other. They took a step and then another, and he thought, they're not my feet. They're someone else's. Someone else is walking. It can't be me. There's quite a bit of possible Brantham leaping in this chapter, and this is the first one.
Yeah.
When he looked down, he could see them stumbling through the snow, shapeless things and clumsy. It would not stop, the snow. The heavy pack he carried made him look like some monstrous hunchback, and he was tired, so tired. I can't go on. Mother have mercy, I can't. Every fourth or fifth step, he had to reach down and tug up his sword belt. He'd lost the sword in the fist, but the scabbard still weighed down the belt. He did have 2 knives, the dragonglass dagger John had given him, and the steel one he cut his meat with. All that weight dragged heavy, and his belly was so big and round that if he forgot to tug, the belt slipped right off and tangled around his ankles, no matter how tight he cinched it. He tried belting it above his belly once, but then it came almost to his armpits. Brennan laughed himself sick at the sight of it, and Dolorous Ed had said, I knew a man once who wore his sword on a chain around his neck like that. One day he stumbled, and the hilt went up his nose. Yeah, they kidnapped a baby werewolf after slaughtering its mom before its eyes. Ally, sure.
That's a D&D reference from last night, I guess.
Okay. Sam was stumbling himself. There were rocks beneath the snow and the roots of trees, and sometimes deep holes in the frozen ground. Black Bernard had stepped in one and broken his ankle 3 days past, or maybe 4, or didn't know how long it had been, truly. The Lord Commander had put Bernard on a horse after that. Sobbing, Sam took another step. It felt more like he was falling down than walking, falling endlessly but never hitting the ground, just falling forward and forward. I'm so cold and tired, I need to sleep, just a little sleep beside a fire and a bite to eat that isn't frozen. So that actually does sound like it's a reference to Bran, right?
Falling. Yeah, I was going to say the falling dream and
so the implication is it's Bran's consciousness taking over and so forth, right? But if he stopped, he died. You know nothing, Sam Tarley. They had been 50 when they fled the Fist, maybe more, but some had wandered off in the snow, a few wounded had bled to death, and sometimes Sam heard shouts behind him from the rear guard, and once an awful scream. When he heard that he had run 20 yards or 30, as fast and as far as he could, his half-frozen feet kicking up the snow. They're behind us. They're still behind us. They are taking us one by one. Sobbing, Sam took another step. He wore 3 pairs of hose, 2 layers of small clothes beneath a double lamb's wool tunic, and over that a thick quilted coat that padded him against the cold steel of his chainmail. Over the hauberk he had a loose surcoat. Over that a triple thick cloak with a bone button that fastened tight under his chins. Its hood flopped forward over his forehead. Heavy fur mitts covered his hands over thin wool and leather gloves. A scarf was wrapped snugly about the lower half of his face, and he had a tight-fitting fleece-lined cap to pull down over his ears beneath the hood. And still the cold was in him, his feet especially. He could even feel them now, but only yesterday they had hurt so bad he could hardly bear to stand on them, let alone walk. Every step made him want to scream. Was that yesterday? He could not remember. He had not slept since the Fist, not once since the horn had blown, unless it was while he was walking. Can a man walk while he was sleeping? Sam did not know, or else he'd forgotten.
Hey, before you go on, the the cold is in him, and we're talking about Brandon leaping, helping him move forward. If that's true, and it's the cold that's in him,
Could be
um,
the other.
yeah. Well, I mean, is it Bran? And if so, is Bran on a side that we don't think that he is?
Yeah, I'm really starting to wonder about that. Like,
Yeah,
um, yeah. So like the guy, the Severin, the guy's basically Bran in the Book of the New Sun. He's not good, and he's the protagonist, and he winds up, he's a boy at the start of the story, and he winds up becoming basically the king, and he's really not good, and
okay.
and and um, Eldrick's seventh video came out yesterday, and a lot of it is about Bran representing the children and the children controlling giants. And we talk, and you know how Sandor is like basically almost fooled into helping them build a wall, and then they kick him out basically, right? Um, and so the idea that the children aren't good, it sure seems like that's. I mean, and of course, people have commented that Bran taking over Hodor is not good, um,
Yeah.
and so
I've always said this: the children that's controlling the undead army, not the White Walkers.
I think it is the
We've
White
never
Walkers, but
seen
they
them on
might
the
be
same
allied with the
page,
children.
and this is the chapter that a lot of people like to point out. Yes, we have. No, we haven't. We've seen them talk about 5 days prior and the army of the undead, and then towards the end of the chapter, you see a White Walker. That's still not the same as seeing the White Walkers like in the show, pointing
Sure,
the spears and the army of
sure.
the dead attacking. I know. I'm sorry, tinfoil
I'm just,
hat.
well, my point is, I don't know. I just think there's certainly clues that the children have been, you know, taking control of giants against their will, and Bran's been taking control of Hodor against his will. One of the things Eldrick talks about in his seventh and final video of the series that came out yesterday is that is that it's actually the thunderstorm that causes Bran to need to take over Hodor, and that symbolically represents the idea of that lightning from the gods being sent and causing him to then be magically able to control giants from the earth, right? And so anyway, yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that particular aspect of the symbolism, and I kind of like that one especially.
I have to watch it.
Yeah, but even just this concept that it's all about the children controlling the giants against their will and Bran controlling Hodor against his will. It's like, yeah, it's a pretty good case to be made that maybe Bran's not the good guy.
Okay.
Of course, what we know that he's at a minimum he's supposed to be morally gray, and probably that's really where you're talking about with Severin and the Book of the New Sun as well is that he could be a pretty dark shade of gray.
Okay.
Sobbing, he took another step. The snow swirled down around him. Sometimes it fell from a white sky, and sometimes from a black, but that was all that remained of day and night. The small of his back hurt abominably. Ooh, is it an abominable snowman? As if someone had shoved a knife in there and was wiggling it back and forth with every step.
Hey, Nettles.
Hey, girl Nettles. If only I was stronger. He wasn't, though, and it was no good wishing. The only thing he could do was cry, and when he cried, the tears froze on his cheeks. Sobbing, he took another step. The crust was broken where he set his feet. Otherwise, he did not think he could have moved it at all. Off to the left and right, half seen through the silent trees, torches turned to vague orange halos in the falling snow. When he turned his head, he could see them, slipping silent through the wood, bobbing up and down and back and forth. The old bear's ring of fire, he reminded himself, and woe to him who leaves it. As he walked, it seemed as if he were chasing the torches ahead of him. But they had legs as well, longer and stronger than his, so he could never catch them. Yesterday, he begged for them to let him be one of the torchbearers, even if it meant walking outside of the column with the darkness pressing close. He wanted the fire, dreamed of the fire. If I had the fire, I would not be cold. But someone reminded him that he'd had a torch at the start, but he dropped it in the snow and snuffed the fire out. Sam didn't remember dropping any torch, but he supposed it was true. He was too weak to hold his arm up for long. Yeah, we gotta comment on that. Was it
Yeah.
Ed who reminded him about the torch, or Graham? He couldn't remember that either. He took another step. So In the past, we've seen that with Sansa and Bran that we question whether when people suppose things are true that they really are true. So it makes you wonder, did
Well,
he?
also
And they all might be delirious.
it could be that, or then you have that lost time associated with Branham leaping.
Sure.
Yeah,
So it could be more evidence of that too. Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah.
He had wrapped his scarf over his nose and mouth, but it was covered with snot now, and so stiff he feared it must be frozen to his face. Mother have mercy, he muttered in a husky voice beneath the frozen mask. Mother have mercy, mother have mercy, mother have mercy. With each prayer he took another step, dragging his legs through the snow. Mother have mercy, mother have mercy, mother have mercy.
Hey,
So
quick thing. The woman on Victoria's ship, she's called the Husky Woman or
Dusky.
something. Dusky. Okay, never mind. All right.
So, as I tweeted years ago, this is likely a reference to A Bridge Too Far. Actually, LML was the only one who really replied to that tweet. He said, I'd be surprised if you were wrong. Because I tweeted out specifically a clip on YouTube. I've also posted it to Discord, I think, where there's specifically a time where a guy keeps saying, Hail Mary. You know, he keeps doing Hail Mary, Hail Mary, Hail Mary. Hail Mary, Mother God, Hail Mary, Mother God, Hail Mary, Mother God, as they're in this war.
Hey.
I like Husky Woman better as this Anyway, so his own mother was 1,000 leagues south, safe with his sisters and his little brother Dickon in the keep at Horn Hill. She can't hear me no more than the mother above. The mother was merciful, all the Septons agreed, but the seven had no power beyond the wall. This was where the old gods ruled, the nameless gods of the trees and the wolves and the snows. Mercy, he whispered then, to whatever might be listening. Old gods are new, or demons too. Oh, mercy, mercy me, mercy me. Maslin screamed for mercy. Why did he suddenly remember that? It was nothing he wanted to remember. The man had stumbled backward, dropping his sword, pleading, yielding, even yanking off his thick black glove and thrusting it up before him as if it were a gauntlet. He was still shrieking for quarter as the white lifted him in the air by the throat and near ripped the head off him. And the whites are consistently doing that, by the way. That's how they always kill, is by basically ripping people's necks off, twisting them, and so forth.
Yeah, well, I think it's George's way of showing us just how freaking strong the whites are. It's like the skinny skeleton Dondarrion fighting Sandor Clegane and matching him blow for blow when it comes to strength. It's unnatural. It's magical.
And it could also be a link to the concept that the children created them from the children's tower. So maybe them calling the Hammer of the Waters was the act of creating the others, and they did it from the children's tower at the neck, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, just a thought.
I got that right on on YouTube. I'll get questions about A Song of Ice and Fire every now and then, and that was actually, I think, the last trivia question of which tower did the Children of the Forest call down the Hammers of the Waters, and I'm like, the Children's Tower. I mean, right?
It's named based on that, right?
Yeah, anyway, I'm telling you.
The dead have no mercy left in them, and the others, no, I mustn't think of that. Don't think, don't remember. Just walk, just walk, just walk. I don't know, that kind of sounds like the others might have been there. The dead have no mercy left in them, and the others, no, I mustn't think of that. That almost sounds like he actually has. Think about that statement. The dead have no mercy left in them, and the others, no, I mustn't think of that. Don't think. Don't remember. Just walk. Just walk. Just walk. That makes it sound like he may have seen the others with the dead.
Yes, but when it comes to George, unless you see it on the page,
it's ambiguous. I know. And as we say, you say, you're not wrong until the book comes out. And as I say, he's deliberately ambiguous. He likes to keep his options open. There's multiple correct interpretations.
Right. Well, stop and look at it this way, okay? You have this multi-book universe that he's creating, and in the very first prologue, the first chapter, if you want to call it that, of the first book, he just serves up the bad guys on a silver platter for you to take in. I mean, it's just it's like fish hook.
No, I mean, there's probably more to it than that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and that's part of the point. Sobbing, No, that's okay. Sobbing, he took another step. So from Clash John 6, one step and then another, John told himself. One step and then another, and I will not fall. I
Doesn't
just
Danny do a? I think Lady
that
Thistle.
that's not the only time, that's for sure. We've already harkened back to this, and it wasn't from Sam before.
Mhm.
So it may have been Danny. It may have been Danny that did
Yeah,
this
I want to say
because
when
I
we did
know
this
we've
chapter on book
already
club, it was
I
it
know
was
we've already
Danny
had
that
one
was.
before this
Yeah.
that that we already said, hey, that reminds me of John. Right. So I know this is not the this is at least the third time that we've seen this one step kind of
If
thing.
you know how my memory is, but if memory serves, I think she
Or
was
another step.
comparing it to Danny's last chapter um, in the series so far, when she's going through the Dothraki Sea.
Well, I think there's ones before this because I'm pretty sure we saw something else besides John that we've tied to these two before. But I think we have. Anyway, yeah, but the point is, it's definitely not just Sam and John.
All
This
right.
happens more than
Well,
once,
here's
more than
this.
twice.
Go back and rewatch all of our live streams and see if you can find that, and then let me know. Okay.
Yeah, that won't take any time at all.
Okay.
Actually, I may have the notes, so I could search for another step, and I might be able to find it. We'll see. I
Yeah.
might I may try that. I may try that.
All that every time that we say, "Hey, we need to earmark that or mark that down
Yeah, we
or
really do
watch
need
for
to
that in
actually
the
start doing
future,"
that.
we
We
probably
need
need to
to.
go
We
ahead.
should create a list.
Yeah, start writing that down because if you relying on my memory,
Oh
you're
yeah, yeah.
SOL, man.
All right. A root beneath the crust caught his toe, and Sam tripped and fell heavily to one knee so hard he bit his tongue. He could taste the blood in his mouth, warmer than anything he had tasted since the fist. This is the end, he thought. Now that he had fallen, he could not seem to find the strength to rise again. He groped for a tree branch and clutched it tight, trying to pull himself back to his feet, but his stiff legs would not support him. The mail was too heavy, and he was too fat besides, and too weak
Hey,
and too tired.
uh, it was a tree that caused him to fall.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you do have to wonder: did he need to be slowed down? Did he need to have Paul there? Maybe.
Yeah.
Back on your feet, piggy! Someone growled as he went past, but Sam paid him no mind. I'll just lie down in the snow and close my eyes. It wouldn't be so bad dying here. He couldn't possibly be any colder, and after a little while, he wouldn't be able to feel the ache in his lower back or the terrible pain in his shoulders, no more than he could feel his feet. I won't be the first to die. They can't say I was. Hundreds had died of the fist. They died all around him, and more had died after. He'd seen them. Shivering, Sam released his grip on the tree and eased himself down in the snow. It was cold and wet, he knew, but could scarcely feel it through all his clothing. He stared upward at the pale white sky as snowflakes drifted down upon his stomach and his chest and his eyelids. The snow will cover me like a thick white blanket. It'll be warm under the snow. If they speak of me, they'll have to say I died a man of the night's watch. I did. I did. I did my duty. No one can say I forswore myself. I'm fat and I'm weak and I'm craven, but I did my duty.
Yeah. Quick
The
thing
ra-
though, if they've been walking for 5 days straight, as bad as we see Sam here, all the rest of those guys are on their last leg too. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's yeah, it's. I mean, 3 days without food and water because they definitely
right,
haven't
right. And
stopped.
and
I mean,
small Paul
they're
starts out confident that he can carry him, but eventually he can't because he's worn out too.
yeah. Well, I mean, small. I mean, well, to be fair, Small Paul and Sam probably have the biggest reserves, different kinds, but. I mean, yeah, all of them, especially the skinnier guys, they're probably worse off than Sam is as far
Oh yeah,
as on their last leg.
yep. The Ravens had been his responsibility. That was why they brought him along. He hadn't wanted to go. He told them so. He told them all what a big coward he was. But Maester Aemon was very old and blind besides, so they had to send Sam to tend to the Ravens. The Lord Commander had given him his orders when they made their camp on the Fist. You're no fighter. We both know that, boy. If it happens that we're attacked, don't go trying to prove otherwise. You'll just get in the way. You're to send a message. And don't come running to ask what the letter should say. Write it out yourself and send one bird to Castle Black and another to the Shadow Tower. Bear pointed a gloved finger right at Sam's face. I don't care if you're so scared you foul your breeches. I don't care if 1,000 wildlings are coming over the walls, howling for your blood. You get those birds off, or I swear I'll hunt you through all 7 hells and make you damn sorry that you didn't. And Mormont's own raven had bobbed its head up and down and croaked, Sorry, sorry, sorry. Hey, Mormon doesn't believe in 7 hells. Anyway.
We was talking to a man that did.
Well, except that he supposedly has forsworn his father's gods and embraced the gods of the North.
Yeah, this is true.
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
Sam was sorry. Sorry he hadn't been braver or stronger or good with swords, that he hadn't been a better son to his father and a better brother to Dickon and the girls. He was sorry to die, too, but better men had died in the fist, good men and true, not squeaking fat boys like him. At least he would not have the old bear hunting him through hell, though. I got the birds off. I did that right, at least. He'd written out the messages ahead of time, short messages and simple, telling of an attack on the fist of the first men. Then he'd tucked them away safe in his parchment pouch, hoping he would never need to send them.
Hey,
When the
every
horns
time I hear the name Dickon, I keep thinking of Braun laughing. Sorry.
Yep. No, that's all right. When the horns blew, Sam had been sleeping. He thought he was dreaming them at first, but when he opened his eyes, snow was falling on the camp, and the Black Brothers were all grabbing bows and spears and running toward the ring wall. Chet was the only one nearby, Maester Amon's old steward with the face full of boils and the big wen on his neck. Sam had never seen so much fear on a man's face as he saw on Chet's when the third blast came moaning through the trees. Help me get the birds off, he pleaded, but the other steward had turned and run off, dagger in hand. He has the dogs to care for, Sam remembered. Probably the Lord Commander had given him some orders as well. Not exactly, Sam.
Nope.
You know nothing, Sam Tarley. His fingers had been so stiff and clumsy in the gloves, and he was shaking from fear and cold, but he found the parchment pouch and dug out the messages he'd written. The ravens were shrieking furiously, and when he opened the castle black cage, one of them flew right in his face. 2 more escaped before Sam could catch one. When he did, it pecked him through his glove, drawing blood. Yet somehow he held on long enough to attach the little roll of parchment. The warhorn had fallen silent by then, but the fist rang with shouted commands and the clatter of steel. Fly, Sam called as he tossed the raven into the air. The birds in the shadow tower cage were screaming and fluttering about so madly he was afraid to open the door, but he made himself do it anyway. This time he caught the first raven that tried to escape. A moment later it was clawing its way up through the falling snow, bearing word of the attack. His duty done, he finished dressing with clumsy, frightened fingers, donning his cap and surcoat and hooded cloak and buckling on his sword belt, buckling it real tight so it wouldn't fall down. Yeah, right. Then he found his pack and stuffed all the things inside, spare small clothes and dry socks, the dragonglass arrowheads and spearhead John had given him, the old horn too, his parchments, inks, and quills, the maps he'd been drawing, and a rock-hard garlic sausage he'd been saving since the wall. He tied it all up and shouldered the pack on his back. The Lord Commander said I wasn't to rush to the ring wall, he recalled, but he said I shouldn't come running to him either. Sam took a deep breath and realized that he did not know what to do next. He remembered turning in a circle, lost, the fear growing inside him as it always did. Sam could see nothing beyond 3 yards, not even the torches burning along the low stone wall that ringed the crown of the hill. The torches had gone out? That was too scary to think about. The horn blew thrice long, 3 long blasts means others, the White Walkers of the wood, the cold shadows, the monsters with the tails that made him squeak and tremble as a boy, riding their giant ice spiders hungry for blood. Awkwardly, of course, LML thinks that they ride the ice spiders means that they ride the weirwoods because the weirwoods look like ice spiders when they're covered with snow.
Yeah.
Anyway, awkwardly, he drew his sword and plodded heavily through the snow, holding it. A dog ran past barking, and he saw some of the men from the shadow tower, big bearded men with long axes and 8-foot spears. He felt safer for their company, so he followed them to the wall. When he saw the torches still burning atop the ring of stones, a shudder of relief went through him. We've mentioned previously that Corrin is suspiciously clean-shaven despite repeated references to the bearded men of the Shadow Tower. We think he's Lord Commander Gerald Hightower. See Triplet Targaryens episode 6. The Black Brothers stood with swords and spears in hand.
That is also a hint on Mance Raider too, because he's clean-shaven, and we see Tormund giving John a hard time really about unusual. Being clean-shaven. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be that the Giants have never seen a clean-shaven man because they're so rare, right?
Yeah.
Up north. Yep. The Black Brothers stood with swords and spears in hand, watching the snowfall, waiting. Sir Malador Locke went by on his horse, wearing a snow-speckled helm. Sam stood well back behind the others, looking for Gren or Dolorous Ed. I have to die. Let me die beside my friends, he remembered thinking. But all the men around him were strangers, Shadow Tower men under the command of the ranger named Blaine.
That's kind of a brave thing to say, though. If I have to die, let me die among my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Sam is braver than he thinks he is. He just thinks
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely true.
Without a doubt.
And of course, The only time you can't be brave is when you're afraid, and he's always afraid.
There you go. That means he's always brave.
Here they come, he heard a brother say. Notch, said Blaine, and 20 black arrows were pulled from as many quivers and notched to as many bowstrings. Gods be good, there's hundreds, a voice said softly. Draw, Blaine said, and then hold. Sam could not see and did not want to see. The men of the Night's Watch stood behind their torches, waiting with arrows pulled back to their ears as something came up that dark, slippery slope through the snow. Hold, Blaine said again. Hold, hold. That reminds me, almost there from Star Wars. And then loose. The arrows whispered as they flew.
Oh, just for a FYI for anybody out there, I know the movies you see them always say fire. That's not true. It was loose.
Right. And the show does that really well in the first 4 seasons when George is working with them, and not so well in the last 4 seasons when George is not working with them. A ragged cheer went up from the men along the ring wall, but it died quickly. They're not stopping, my lord, a man said to Blaine, and another shouted, More! Look, there, coming from the trees. And yet another said, Oh, coming from the trees, of course, is symbolic of the weirwood sending the others, right?
Or sending the undead.
The undead, yeah. Gods have mercy. They's crawling. They's almost here. They's on us. Sam had been backing away by then, shaking like the last leaf from the tree when the wind kicks up, as much from cold as from fear. It had been very cold that night, even colder than now. The snow feels almost warm. I feel better now. A little rest was all I needed. Maybe in a little while I'll be strong enough to walk again. In a little while. A horse stepped past his head, a shaggy gray beast with snow in its mane and hoofs crusted with ice. Sam watched it come and watched it go. Another appeared from out of the falling snow with a man in black leading it. When he saw Sam in his path, he cursed him and led the horse around. Wish I had a horse, he thought. If I had a horse, I could keep going. I could sit and even sleep some in the saddle. Most of their mouths had been lost at the fist, though, and those that remained carried their food, their torches, and their wounded. Sam wasn't wounded, only fat and weak and the greatest craven in the 7 kingdoms. He was such a coward. Lord Randall, his father, had always said so, and he had been right. Sam was his heir, but he had never been worthy, so his father had sent him away to the wall. His little brother Dickon would inherit the Tarley lands and castle, the greatsword Heartsbane that the lords of Horde Hill had borne so proudly for centuries. He wondered whether Dickon would shed a tear for his brother who died in the snow, somewhere off beyond the edge of the world. Why should he? A coward's not worth weeping over. He'd heard his father tell his mother as much 100 times. The old bear knew it too.
Hey, he was such a coward. Lord Randall, his father, had always said so. Okay, Randall Tarley is blaming Sam for being craven, but it is Randall Tarley that called him that basically all his life. So he is a direct result of Sam's thinking on the subject, basically.
Absolutely.
He made him what he said supposedly made him what he said he was.
Yep. Oh, and we were not there yet. I'll talk about when we get there. Fire arrows, the Lord Commander roared that night in the fist when he appeared suddenly astride his horse. Give them flame! It was then he noticed Sam there, quaking. Tarley, get out of here. Your place is with the ravens. I got the message away. Good. On Morn's shoulder, his own raven echoed. Good. The Lord Commander looked huge in fur and mail. Behind his black iron visor, his eyes were fierce. You're in the way here. Go back to your cages. If I need to send another message, I don't want to have to find you first. See that the birds are ready. He did not wait for a response, but turned his horse and trotted around the ring, shouting, Fire! Give them fire! So we should probably clarify here that Mormont told him to send one message to Castle Black, and one message to the Shadow Tower. Shadow Black, I kind of combined the two. Sorry about that. And then, and he did that. He told him to get ready to send messages, and he did that. And then he never told him to send any messages. And so he says, I did my duty, and that Mormont will not chase me, right?
Right.
And then the show saw this, and that he didn't manage to attach anything to the last batch of ravens, and so they portrayed it as if he completely screwed up. Whereas he doesn't actually. Mormont never actually gets around to telling him to send a second message, so he didn't actually do anything that he wasn't supposed to do.
Yeah.
He tried to take initial initiative.
Yeah.
And if he had succeeded, yes, that would have been better. but he didn't fail to do his duty, and that's what he tells us. I did my duty. He will not chase me through hell.
Okay, you're in the Fist of the First Men, and the one person in charge of sending ravens in case something bad happens, you got out digging latrines. The show got it way wrong. Okay, you're
Oh yeah.
miles away from the Fist of the First Men,
Well,
digging
it's easy to
latrines.
get this interpretation. Don't get me wrong. It's. I think George does kind of confuse the issue a little bit by having
Yeah,
him show such great initiative and prepare, and then kind of not succeed in this extra initiative he's showing.
yeah.
But he does tell us, right there, I did everything he told me to do, right?
Hmm.
And he did. And so I just thought it was worth trying to clarify that because you do kind of tend to get it mixed up in your head with the show if you've seen the show,
Yeah,
right?
it's
So
easy to do.
yeah. Sam did not need to be told twice. He went back to the birds as fast as his fat legs could carry him. I should write the messages ahead of time, he thought, so we can get the birds away as fast as need be. It took him longer than it should have to light his little fire to warm the frozen ink. He sat beside it on a rock with quill and parchment and wrote his messages. Attacked amidst snow and cold, but we've thrown them back with fire arrows, he wrote, as he heard Torrance Smallwood's voice ring out with a command of notch, draw, loose. The flight of arrows made a sound as sweet as a mother's prayer. Burn, you dead bastards, burn! Diamond sang out, cackling. Brothers cheered and cursed. All safe, he wrote. We remain in the Fist of the First Men. Sam hoped there were better archers than him. He put that note aside and found another blank parchment. Still fighting on the Fist, amidst heavy snow, he wrote when someone shouted, They're still coming! Result uncertain. Spears, someone said. It might have been Sir Mallador, but Sam could not swear to it. Whites attacked us on the Fist, in snow, he wrote. We drove them off with fire. He turned his head. Through the drifting snow, all he could see was the huge fire at the center of the camp, with mounted men moving restlessly around it. The reserve, he knew, ready to ride down anything that breached the ring wall. They'd armed themselves with torches and placed the swords and were lighting them in the flames. Whites all around us, he wrote, when he heard the shouts from the north face. Coming up from north and south at once. Spears and swords don't stop them, only fire. Loose, 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 a voice screamed in the night, and another shouted, Bloody huge, and a third voice said, A giant, and a fourth insisted, A bear, a bear. So we've talked about that before, that
Yeah,
the
all
giants are
covered with
easily
hair.
confused with bears,
Yeah.
right? And therefore, if you do know what a giant looks like, a bear could also be easily confused with a giant.
Yes.
Anyway, a horse shrieked and the hounds began to bay, and there was so much shouting that Sam couldn't make out the voices anymore. He wrote faster, note after note. Dead wildlings and a giant, or maybe a bear, on us, all around. He heard the crash of steel on wood, which could only mean one thing. Whites over the ring wall. Fighting inside the camp. A dozen mounted brothers pounded past him toward the east wall, burning brands, streaming flames in each rider's hand. Lord Commander Mormont is meeting them with fire. We've won. We're winning. We're holding our own. We're cutting our way free and retreating for the wall. We're trapped in the Fist, hard pressed. One of the Shadow Tower men came staggering out of the darkness to fall at Sam's feet. He crawled within a foot of the fire before he died. Lost, Sam wrote. The battle's lost. We're all lost. Why must he remember the fight at the Fist? He didn't want to remember. Not that. He tried to make himself remember his mother, or his little sister Tala, or that girl Gilly at Craster's Keep. Someone was shaking him by the shoulder. Get up, a voice said. Sam, you can't go to sleep here. Get up and keep walking. So it's almost as if somebody is making him remember these things. Just a thought.
Yeah.
I wasn't asleep. I was remembering. Of course, it's also just the trauma. Is probably a lot of it.
Yeah.
Go away, he said, his words frosting the cold air. I'm well. I want to rest. Get up, Gren's voice, harsh and husky. He loomed over Sam, his blacks crusty with snow. There's no resting, the old bear said. You'll die. Gren, he smiled. No, truly, I'm good here. You just go on. I'll catch you after I've rested a bit longer. You won't. Gren's thick brown beard was frozen all around his mouth. It made him look like some old man. You'll freeze, or the others will get you. Sam, get up. The night before they left the wall, Pip had teased Gren the way he did. Sam remembered, smiling and saying how Gren was a good choice for the ranging, since he was too stupid to be terrified. Gren hotly denied it until he realized what he was saying. He was stocky and thick-necked and strong. Sir Alistair Thorne had called him Arx, the same way he called Sam Sir Piggy and John Lord Snow. He'd always treated Sam nice enough. That was only because of John, though. If it weren't for John, none of them would have liked me. And now John was gone, lost in the scurrying past with Corn Halfhand, most likely dead. Sam would have cried for him, but those tears would only freeze as well. He could scarcely keep his eyes open now. A tall brother with a torch stopped beside them, but for a wonderful moment Sam felt the warmth on his face. Leave him, the man said to Gren. If they can't walk, they're done. Save your strength for yourself, Gren. He'll get up, Gren replied. He only needs a hand. The man moved on, taking the blessed warmth with him. Gren tried to pull Sam to his feet. That hurts, he complained. Stop it. Gren, you're hurting my arm. Stop it. You're too bloody heavy. Gren jammed his hands into Sam's armpits, gave a grunt, and hauled him upright. The moment he let go, the fat boy sat back down in the snow. Gren kicked him, a solid thump that cracked the crust of snow around his boot and sent it flying everywhere. Get up, he kicked him again. Get up and walk. You have to walk. Sam fell over sideways, curling up into a tight ball to protect himself from the kicks. He hardly felt them through all his wool and leather and mail, but even so, they hurt. I thought Gren was my friend. You shouldn't kick your friends. Why won't they let me be? I just need to rest, that's all. To rest and sleep some, and maybe die a little.
Hey, does the inner monologue kind of sound a little childish?
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. And should it is another question. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, no, it doesn't sound like somebody that's
no. But I mean, part of it might be that he's delirious from lack of sleep.
Yeah.
If you take the torch, I can take the fat boy. Suddenly he was jerked up into the cold air away from his sweet, soft snow. He was floating. There was an arm under his knees and another one under his back. Sam raised his head and blinked. A face loomed close. A broad, brutal face with a flat nose and small dark eyes and a thicket of coarse brown beard. He'd seen the face before, but it took him a moment to remember. Paul. Small Paul. Melting ice ran down into his eyes from the heat of the torch. Can you carry him? He heard Gren ask. I carried a calf once, was heavier than him. I carried him down to his mother so he could get a drink of milk. Sam's head bobbed up and down with every step that Small Paul took. Stop it, he muttered. Put me down. I'm not a baby. I'm a man of the Night's Watch, he sobbed. Just let me die. Be quiet, Sam, said Gren. Save your strength. Think about your sisters and brother. Maester Aemon, your favorite foods. Sing a song if you like. Aloud? In your head. Sam knew 100 songs, but when he tried to think of one, he couldn't. The words had all gone from his head. He sobbed again and said, I don't know any songs, Gren. I did know some, but now I don't. Yes, you do, said Gren. How about The Bear and the Maiden Fair? Everybody knows that one. A bear there was, a bear, all black and brown and covered with hair. No, not that one, Sam pleaded. The bear that had come up the fist had no hair left on its rotted flesh. He didn't want to think about bears. No songs, please, Gren. Think about your ravens, then. They were never mine. They're the Lord Commander's ravens, the ravens of the Night's Watch. They belong to Castle Black in the Shadow Tower. Small Paul frowned. Chet said I could have the old bear's raven, the one that talks. I saved food for it and everything. He shook his head. I forgot, though. I left the food where I hid it. He plodded onward, pale white breath coming from his mouth with every step, and suddenly said, Could I have one of your ravens? Just the one. I'd never let Lark eat it. It does sound childish, says Girl Nettles. Lady Thistle says, nice about the childish thought. That maybe ties into the whole regression to infancy and rebirth line of thinking I went into at book club. Oh, interesting. So Small Paul is supposed to be Lenny from Of Mice and Men, or perhaps from the Looney Tunes parodies thereof. Mm-hmm. He wants a talking bird, and his companion wants to eat it. But I can't say Sylvester, George. They're gone, says Sam. I'm sorry. So sorry. They're flying back to the wall now. He'd set the birds free when he'd heard the war horn sound once more, calling the watch to horse. 2 short blasts and a long one. That was the call to mount up. But there was no reason to mount unless to abandon the fist, and that meant the battle was lost. The fear bit him so strong then that it was all Sam could do to open the cages. Only as he watched the last raven flap up into the snowstorm did he realize he'd forgotten to send any of the messages he'd written. Now, it's not clear which message he would have sent, though, because one of them was that they lost and they all died there, and one of them was that they were retreating and that they successfully escaped. And he doesn't really know which of those two would be the appropriate message to send anyway.
Right.
No, he'd squealed. Oh, no, oh, no. The snow fell and the horns blew. Ahoo, ahoo, ahoo. Sammy's looking at me funny. They cried, to horse, to horse, to horse. Sam saw 2 ravens perched on a rock and ran after them, but the birds flapped off lazily through the swirling snow in opposite directions. He chased one, his breath puffing out his nose in thick white clouds, stumbled, and found himself 10 feet from the ring wall. After that, he remembered the dead coming over the stones with the arrows in their faces and through their throats. Some were all in ringmail, and some were almost naked. Wildlings, most of them, but a few wore faded blacks. He remembered one of the Shadow Tower men shoving his spear through a white's pale, soft belly and out his back. The thing staggered right up the shaft and reached out his black hands and twisted the brother's head around until blood came out of his mouth. That was when his bladder let go the first time. He was almost sure. And we already mentioned that that's how they kill. They twist
Yeah.
your head off, basically. He did not remember running, but he must have, because the next he knew he was near the fire half a camp away, with old Sir Otton Withers and some archers. Sir Otton was on his knees in the snow, staring at the chaos around them, until a riderless horse came by and kicked him in the face. The archers paid him no mind. They were loosing fire arrows at shadows in the dark. Sam saw one white hit, saw the flames engulf it. There were a dozen more behind it, a huge pale shape that must have been the bear. Soon enough, the bowman had no arrows. Of course, it also could be a giant.
Yeah.
And then Sam found himself on a horse. It wasn't his own horse, and he never recalled mounting up either. Maybe it was the horse that had smashed Sir Auden's face in. The horns were still blowing, so he kicked the horse and turned him toward the sound. So again, that's more potential Brantham leaping.
Yeah. Now, I don't want Brandon leaping to take anything away from Sam's courage.
Again, that's one of the dangers of this is people worry that it can completely take away all the agency of the people and so forth. And you know, as you've said, I don't think it's possible to make somebody do something that's totally against their character.
Right.
And we speculated that there's when Tyrion feels the urge to stand up, is that could be a failed attempt at Brantham leaping, or it could be like a chess move that's been taken and then taken back, and it's not
Right.
obviously it's not clear which. And of course, the story is often ambiguous.
Well, I mean, when it comes to Sam and this part of the story, any Brandon leaping that I think is going on is to get him to the point. Well, one of the reasons would be to get him, because him stabbing and killing the white is all Sam.
The other.
Yeah, the other.
White Walker,
I'm sorry.
the white.
Yeah. That's all Sam. I don't remember any Brandon leaping at that point.
No, that's very clear that it's Brantham leaping. Actually,
it is.
It does the whole thing that Arya does, where she's hearing Ned's voice and stuff. We'll get there. We'll get there.
I said, don't rely on my memory.
No, it definitely does. It's blatantly. It's like the second time we've had this blatant memory implant of other people's voices talking to you and stuff.
Okay, well, what do I know?
No, we'll get there. In the midst of carnage and chaos and blowing snow, he found Dolorous Ed sitting on his garron with a plain black banner on a spear. Sam, Ed said when he saw him, "Would you wake me, please? I'm having this terrible nightmare." More men were mounting up every moment. The Warrens called them back. "Ahoo, ahoo, ahoo." "They're over the west wall, my lord," Thorin Smallwood screamed as the old bear as he fought to control his horse. "I'll send reserves." "No!" Mormont had to bellow at the top of his lungs to be heard over the horns. "Call them back. We have to cut our way out." He stood in his stirrups, his black cloak snapping in the wind, the fire shining off his armor. "Spearhead!" he roared. "Form wedge. We ride. Down the south face, then east." "My lord, the south slope's crawling with them." "The others are too steep," Mormont said. "We have—" His garron screamed and reared and almost threw him as the bear came staggering through the snow. Sam pissed himself all over again. "I don't think I had any more left inside me." The bear was dead, pale and rotting. Its fur and skin all sloughed off, and half its right arm burned to bone. Yet still it came on. Only its eyes lived, bright blue, just as Jon said. They shone like frozen stars. Thorin Smallwood charged, his longsword shining all orange and red from the light of the fire. His swing near took the bear's head off, and then the bear took his.
Hey, we're shown that just a little bit of fire will kill the whites, but the bear's arm has been burnt.
Yeah.
So it doesn't magically just engulf them and
or he was a burned bear before he got whited.
That's possible.
Or maybe the fire happened during the daytime when the magic's not active.
Okay.
I don't know. So I mean, because it sure seems like what happens with the armies of the dead is that they only ever attack at night, and that they literally are collapsed and dead during the daytime when you see them, right?
Right.
"Ride!" the Lord Commander shouted, wheeling. They were at the gallop by the time they reached the ring. Sam had always been too frightened to jump a horse before, but when the low stone wall loomed up before him, he knew he had no choice. He kicked and closed his eyes and whimpered, and the garron took him over. Somehow, the garron took him over. The rider to his right came crashing down in a tangle of steel and leather and screaming horseflesh. Then the whites were swarming over him, and the wedge was closing up. They plunged down the hillside at a run, through clutching black hands and burning blue eyes and blowing snow. Horses stumbled and rolled. Men were swept from their saddles. Torches spun through the air. Axes and swords hacked at dead flesh. And Samwell Tarly sobbed, clutching desperately to his horse with a strength he never knew he had. He was in the middle of the flying spearhead with brothers on either side, and before and behind him as well. The dog ran with him for a ways, bounding down the snowy slope and in and out among the horses, but could not keep up. The whites stood their ground and were ridden down and trampled under hoof. Even as they fell, they clutched at swords and stirrups and the legs of passing horses. Sam saw one claw open a Garen's belly with its right hand while it clung to the saddle with its left. Suddenly, the trees were all around them. Sam was splashing through a frozen stream with the sounds of slaughter dwindling behind. He turned, breathless with relief, until a man in black leapt from the brush and yanked him out of the saddle. Who he was, Sam never saw. He was up in an instant and galloping away the next. When he tried to run after the horse, his feet tangled in a root, and he fell hard on his face and lay weeping like a baby until Dolores Ed found him there. That was his last coherent memory of the fist of the first man. Later, hours later, he stood shivering among the other survivors, half melted and half afoot. They were miles from the fist by then, though Sam did not remember how. Daiwood had led down 5 pack horses, heavy laden with food and oil and torches, and 3 had made it this far. The old bear made them redistribute the loads, so the loss of any one horse and its provisions would not be such a catastrophe. He took Garens from the healthy men and gave them to the wounded, organized the walkers, and set torches to guard their flanks and rear. All I need do is walk, Sam told himself, as he took that first step toward home. But before an hour was gone, he had begun to struggle and to lag. They were lagging now as well, he saw. He remembered Pip saying once how Small Paul was the strongest man on the watch. He must be to carry me. Yet even so, the snow was growing deeper, the ground more treacherous, and Paul's strides had begun to shorten. More horsemen passed, wounded men who looked at Sam with dull and curious eyes. Some torchbearers went by as well. You're falling behind, one told them. The next agreed. No one's like to wait for you, Paul. Leave the pig for the dead men. He promised I could have a bird, Small Paul said, even though Sam hadn't, not truly. They aren't mine to give. I want me a bird that talks and eats corn from my hand. Bloody fool, the torchman said. Then he was gone. It was a while after when Gren stopped suddenly. We're alone, he said in a hoarse voice. I can't see the other torches. Was that the rear guard? Small Paul had no answer for him. Big Man gave a grunt and sank to his knees. His arms trembled as he lay Sam gently in the snow. I can't carry you no more. I would, but I can't. He shivered violently. The wind sighed through the trees, driving a fine spray of snow into their faces. The cold was so bitter that Sam felt naked. He looked for the other torches, but they were gone, every one of them. There was only the one Gren carried, the flames rising from it like pale orange silks. He could see through them to the black beyond. That torch will burn out soon, he thought. We are all alone, without food or friends or fire. But that was wrong. They weren't alone at all. The lower branches of the great green sentinel shed their burden of snow with a soft, wet plop. Gren spun, thrusting out his torch. Who goes there? A horse's head emerged from the darkness. Sam felt a moment's relief until he saw the horse. Hoarfrost covered it like a sheen of frozen sweat. The nest of stiff black entrails dragged from its open belly. On its back was a rider pale as ice. Sam made a whimpery sound deep in his throat. He was so scared he might have pissed himself all over again, but the cold was in him, cold so savage that his bladder felt frozen solid. The other slid gracefully from the saddle to stand upon the snow. Sword slim it was and milky white. Its armor rippled and shifted as it moved, and its feet did not break the crust of the new-fallen snow. Small Paul unslung the long, hafted axe strapped across his back. Why'd you hurt that horse? That was Monty's horse. Sam groped for the hilt of his sword. His scabbard was empty. He'd lost it on the fist, he remembered too late. Get away! Gren took a step, thrusting the torch out before him. Away, or you burned! He poked at it with the flames. The other's sword gleamed with a faint blue glow. He moved toward Gren, lightning quick, slashing. When the ice blue blade brushed the flames, a screech stabbed Sam's ears, sharp as a needle. The head of the torch tumbled sideways to vanish beneath a deep drift of snow. The fire snuffed out at once, and all Gren held was a short wooden stick. He flung it at the other, cursing, as Small Paul charged him with his axe. The fear that filled Sam then was worse than any fear he'd ever felt before. Samuel Tarley knew every kind of fear. Mother, have mercy, he wept, forgetting the old gods in his terror. Father, protect me. Oh, oh. His fingers found his dagger, and he filled his hand with that. The whites have been slow, clumsy things, but the other. Now we were specifically told that one dagger is obsidian, the other is to cut his meat. So the implication is that he's not looking to cut his meat, and therefore, even though it doesn't tell us, it really has kind of told us that the one he fights with is the obsidian, right?
Right.
The whites have been slow, clumsy things, but the other was light as snow in the wind. It slid away from Paul's axe, armor rippling, and its crystal sword twisted and spun and slipped between the iron rings of Paul's mail, through leather and wool and bone and flesh. It came out his back with a hiss, and Sam heard Paul say, "Oh," as he lost the axe. Impaled, his blood smoking around the sword, the big man tried to reach his killer with his hands, and almost had before he fell. The weight of him tore the strange pale sword from the other's grip. "Do it now! Stop crying and fight, you baby! Fight, Craven!" It was his father he heard. It was Alistair Thorne. It was his brother Dickon and the boy Rask. "Craven! Craven! Craven!" He giggled hysterically, wondering if they would make a wight of him, a huge, fat, white wight, always tripping over its own dead feet. "Do it, Sam!" Was that John now? John was dead. "You can do it! You can! Just do it!" And then he was stumbling forward, falling more than running, really, closing his eyes, and again, that's falling, right?
Yeah.
Closing his eyes and shoving the dagger blindly out before him with both hands. He heard a crack, like the sound ice makes when it breaks beneath a man's foot, and then a screech so shrill and sharp that he went staggering backward with his hands over his muffled ears and fell hard on his arse. So yes, there's definitely Brantham leaping there, and it's kind of, the words really do seem to kind of tie it to Bran, don't they? It sounds like it might be John. It's falling, right? I mean, it sure sounds like it's being tied to Bran.
Right. It's Brandon leaping to get him to move, but it's still Sam that does the act. So yeah, I agree.
Well, like we said, I don't think we don't believe that Bran could make him attack if it's not in him to do it.
Right.
When he opened his eyes, the other's armor was running down its legs in rivulets as pale blue blood hissed and steamed around the black dragonglass dagger in his throat. He reached down with two bone-white hands to pull out the knife, but where his fingers touched the obsidian, they smoked. Sam rolled onto his side, eyes wide as the other shrank and puddled, dissolving away. In 20 heartbeats, its flesh was gone, swirling away in a fine white mist. Beneath were bones like milk glass, pale and shiny, and they were melting too. Finally, only the dragonglass dagger remained, wreathed in steam as if it were alive and sweating. Graham bent to scoop it up and flung it down again at once. "Mother, that's cold!" "Obsidian," Sam struggled to his knees. "Dragonglass, they call it. Dragonglass. Dragon glass." He giggled and cried and doubled over to heave his courage out onto the snow. Gren pulled Sam to his feet, checked small Paul for a pulse, and closed his eyes, then snatched up the dagger again. This time he was able to hold it. "You keep it," Sam said. "You're not Craven like me." "So Craven, you killed another." Gren pointed with the knife. "Look there, through the trees. Pink light. Dawn, Sam, dawn. That must be east. If we head that way, we should catch Mormont." "If you say," Sam kicked his left foot against a tree to knock off all the snow. Then the right. "I'll try." Grimacing, he took a step. "I'll try hard." And then another. Up next, Storm 19, Tyrion 3. Robb Stark is his father's son. See, Triplet Targaryens, episodes 1 and 2.
Are you getting them in ahead of time? You ain't gonna throw Lizzie off on account.
All right, well.
I like that chapter. It's one of my favorite Sam chapters.
Yeah, I threw out a little bit of some words here or there, some sentences here and there in the story, especially early on, because I knew it was a pretty long chapter and it was going to take us most of the hour.
Yeah, you never know how many times they're going to stop us too.
Yep.
Oh goodness. Yeah. I like the Brandon leaping is to get you to the opportunity to make the choice versus making the choice for you. Now there's times that he makes the choice for you too, but
it has to be a choice that's 50-50 for you at that point, basically.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, he can't make you if you can't swim at all and would never jump in the water whatsoever to save your life, he's not going to make you jump in the water. It has to be something that you're able or capable, even if you don't know that you're able to do it.
And since we haven't discussed this in a while, we should probably say this. George sort of takes the quantum leap approach to time travel in his other works. He believes that you can get past some of the paradoxes of time travel by having people only travel in their own lifespan, right? Because they don't erase their existence, and which is one of the limitations of quantum leap, and that you work with the gaps of free will that you're able to all you're able to do is consciousness travel and altering people's decisions slightly. So when we say Brantham leaping, we're saying that George's idea of time travel and how to get around a lot of the paradoxes is very similar to the quantum leap and how quantum leap works.
Which is where I think, was it Lady Thistle or Lizzie did the Brantham leaping?
Called it Brantham leaping, and
it's
said,
stuck ever
works.
since.
That works
extremely well. And almost got sorry. I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, it happens to all of us.
Yeah, I mean, helping decisions ever so slightly. I mean, a lot of times, very, very slightly, that we don't even see it when we're looking for it type situations. And there's others where it's a little bit stronger. It's the exact amount of push that is needed for each situation. Some of them are obvious for those that are looking for it. And some of them, like I said, you even when we're looking for it, we don't see it because it was that slight. I mean, I think it happens quite a bit in the book. Because I mean, the whole books are that big giant Cybass game being played against good, evil, yin yang.
Yeah, and the fact that he feels
ice.
the need to tell us that people sometimes feel these urges and that these crazy urges that they would never do and then they resist kind of implies that he's intending to tell us about this mechanism at some point, right?
Right. So I mean, yeah. You got anything else?
No, I think it's plenty for now. Like I said, Eldrick had his 7th and final video in his 7 series. Who would ever dream of somebody starting off their channel with a 7-part series? What madness is this?
I was thinking that when you said his 7th and final video, and I was like, man, where have I heard
he's
7 videos
about
before?
How he wants to do some other things and some shorts and stuff.
Yeah, but like I said, go ahead and plug the channel again. Eldrick Stoneskin.
Eldrick Stoneskin,
yeah. It's definitely worth the watch for sure. Whether you agree with it or not, it's still. I mean, if you've watched our videos, there's definitely.
He may be seeing symbolism and choosing to interpret it as too literal, but George really does like to do that, right? He likes to give us symbolism and then give us the literal version thereof, right? Like whether it's Balon Greyjoy or the faceless man that was sent from Balon Greyjoy, there's a literal faceless man that washes up, and it doesn't look like Balon Greyjoy to me. It sounds a lot more like the faceless man's the one that died there than Balon. But anyway,
ooh, that's nice. Balon has left, and the faceless man is in his place.
Well, that's another option. That's another option is that because we do know that the High Septon looks a lot like, and there's all this no one kind of symbolism around the High Septon as well, that they don't have a name, that they're just considered no one. So I think he's probably leaving that open, but I mean, he definitely looks like Balon, right? Yeah. We've talked through that before, and that's Tools that pointed that out.
Quick thing on, I know it's way off topic, but Cold Hands. That theory that it was the Maester that was at Hardhome.
Long ago.
Okay, we all automatically assumed that Cold Hands was a brother of the Night's Watch. Okay,
but he may have just taken the clothes from one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to take clothes from somebody and there is Night's Watchmen just freaking laying there, that's the clothes you take. So.
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. Are you able to do Wednesday?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. If anything changes, let me know. But Tyrion on Hump Day. What are the odds? That was a joke.
Okay.
You didn't laugh.
Sorry. I was actually I was trying to pull up the name of the Maester. There's a lot of Maesters in the history book.
Yeah.
I probably should have searched for Hardhome. That probably would have worked better.
Well, there was something else about that too when we were talking about people with the same names. I think it's really, really telling that when you go to the website to search the names of Song of Ice and Fire, it is all first names first. Arion. That way you can sit there and look at all the different Arions versus Arion, Stormwalker, anything. I mean, It should be. You would think it would be. Uh, I would think it would be by the last names. But
Anyways, it's Willis. That's the
Wireless,
yeah, Wireless, Mr. Wireless.
wireless.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that, you've made it to 1 hour.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, Hump Day is Tyrion 3. Rob Stark is his father's son. This is probably uh, one of our. Well,
Or we could say, "You will marry Sansa Stark" would be another quote you could take from it, right? Is
yeah, it's a really good chapter. It's. I mean, Tyrion chapters are almost always good. There's some that, but this is a good one. So, Hump Day. Everybody take care. Thank you all for joining us. Hey, James, Edward Martin. As I enter the scene, I'm seen by all beings and friends. Hi, fellows, doing quick
Is
dive.
that friends or fiends? I think it's fiends.
Beans.
Beans and
Oh.
fiends.
Beans and fiends. Well, apparently I can't read either. I did graduate high school.
Thanks, James.
I appreciate it, James. Yeah, we always appreciate it when you can. I know you're a busy man, definitely Monday through Friday. He works 10-hour days. And so we appreciate it. But y'all take care. We will see you Hump Day and be good. Bye, Richard.
We're going. Bye.